The title we will be discussing today is When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir by Patrice Khan-Cullers and Asha Bandeli. This is a different kind of book, so I'd like to offer a different kind of introduction. As the title indicates, it is a memoir of a movement. The Black Lives Matter Global Network is a chapter-based, member-led organization whose mission is to build local power and to intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities by the state and vigilantes. According to the Washington Post, 14 unarmed Black people have been shot and killed by police in 2018. 18-year-old Charles Roundtree in Texas, 60-year-old Cynthia Fields in Georgia, 37-year-old Rashon Washington in New Jersey, 33-year-old Anthony Marcel Green in Georgia, 17-year-old Antoine Rose in Pennsylvania, 41-year-old Robert Lawrence White in Maryland, 24-year-old Marcus David L. Peters in Virginia, 25-year-old Juan Marquis Jones in Virginia, 35-year-old Danny Thomas in Texas, 23-year-old Stephon Clark in California, 27-year-old Cameron Hall in Arizona, 31-year-old Shermichael Azif in Louisiana, 33-year-old Ronell Foster in California, and 61-year-old Arthur McAfee Jr. in Texas. Today's program is for them, along with the countless others in this country who have been victims of violence of any kind based upon their race. Our reviewer today is Alexis R. Clark. Alexis is a 16-year-old junior attending Northeast High School. She has been inspired to become a journalist. If she's not working or at school, she's either reading or writing poetry. Alexis has been finding her voice and working for change in her community as a youth organizer at Teen Empowerment, and she is our youngest BSI reviewer to date. We will draw a name to receive a complimentary copy of the book after the program, and I hope you'll please join me in welcoming Alexis to our podium.
Good afternoon. How are you guys doing today? I'm doing good. I got this book. I'm supposed to be reading, well, not reading the book to y'all, but giving y'all a nice little summary of how I felt about the book. I got this book around in the summer. It came to me in this nice little cute package. It was so cute that I didn't even want to open it. But when I read this book, it spoke to me a lot. This book is her story. It presents through the eyes of a child the devastating events of addiction, poverty, and broken justice systems, and how they affect people of color. Patrice lived under all these pressures. In this book, she talks about her family, raised by a single mother in a family and community impacted by poverty. When I first started reading this book, I thought I had a good understanding on the Black Lives Matter movement. This book taught me just how limited my knowledge really was. Patrice improved my understanding with stories, history, and activism. I'm going to read a page from the story. Being born Black or Mexican was enough to label you a gang member, a dangerous drug-involved criminal. A group of kids hanging out in the streets because there were no parks, no recs, no programming, nothing except sidewalks and alleyways to hang out in. Become a gang, and it was mostly boys rounded up in those years. There were no education plan for us. The only plan left for us was prison or death. When I read this, sadly I can relate. Growing up a Black girl in America, I've witnessed kids hanging out in the streets just because there's nothing better to do. Like she said, there's no parks, there's no recs, there's nothing that we can do. We have zero resources. We don't really have much to do but hang out on the street corners. Black boys lack enough positive male role models, often having only drug dealers to look up to. Patrice gives you the horrifying truth and reality on how we people of color are treated in America. In this book, she talks about her experience with her family and the love that she had for her brother. Patrice's brother Monte's experience with police brutality started when he was young, and for minor infractions, including wearing the same t-shirts as his friends. When incarcerated, Monte was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and for the rest of his life, he was challenged by hospitalization, medication, and police brutality. And each time the police stopped Monte just 'cause and beat him just 'cause the color of his skin, and each time he went to jail, and each time he came back, nobody spoke on this. No one in their family. They let it go. Nobody knew how to talk about these things. The sheriffs at the LA County Jail were the ones who beat him for his illness. They beat him and they kept water from him. They tied him down and drugged him. They drugged him to leave him with no dignity. In the book, she talks about what Monte meant to her. Not a monster, not a threat to officers. I began to remember my brother on his knees drinking out of the toilet. Literally, drinking out of the toilet. That's the way that he was treated in jail. I'm going to read a page for y'all. The way that they described her brother was not the brother that she knew. The brother that she knew was the one who loved animals, the one who laughed so easy, her big 6'2" brother. More than 40 pounds gone, but his suddenly frail frame. He is bruised and beaten. By who? The police. This is not just a list of facts to fill in the gaps of your knowledge. This is the joy and pain that she experienced. She develops a connection with her father and his family. So much of this book was about the relationship in her family. She talks about her mother who was banished from the church, who was a Jehovah's Witness. She wasn't allowed to talk to anybody in her family and her religion for having sex and becoming pregnant out of marriage. She remembers her mom working 3 jobs just to support them. Her mom came from a middle-class family. She never really had to struggle, but moving into poverty, raising her kids by herself. She remembers her father, Gabriel, her biological father, who spent most of his life in and out of prison for drug possession, who struggled with addiction most of his life. He died at age 50 from a heart attack. When I tell you guys this, I can relate on so many levels. My mother was never working 3 jobs. She was never the type of mother that, she was there for us, she was always there. But my mother was more of like her father. Drug possession, addiction, in and out of jail, my whole life. I've been in foster care. I've been with people that I don't know. I've been separated from my siblings. And I struggled with a lot of things. But this is why I do the work that I do today. I can most definitely relate to her by both being organizers, by both telling our stories. She begins the journey that brings her into adulthood in a truly unique high school. The students' history and culture and challenging classism, racism, sexism gives her the connections that begins her journey to Black Lives Matter. She talks about having a cousin who was a gay teen and what it was like to find her sexuality identity, while also managing crises in her life. Does anybody in here know about Trayvon Martin? Can anybody tell me about something about him? Let me call you. You? Yes. He was suspicious. But this made her so angry. This is what led to her starting the Black Lives Matter movement. All the tears that she cried, so much anger and hurt that she felt because he just got off. Nothing. But this is what we mean when we say Black Lives Matter. Black lives, we take care of each other. We're always there for each other. As I told you, her brother has schizophrenia. He was afraid, he was so used to jail that he didn't want to be next to any officers. He didn't even want to go to the doctor. So they took care of him, the people in the neighborhood. This is the same things that happened with her father. Her father, Gabe, who was abusing drugs, but he was always there. But when he wasn't, she knew. She knew when he stopped calling. She knew when he stopped coming around. But that only made her try harder. She was there. When he overdosed, she was there, holding him, talking to him all night. She never seen her father high. He was the type of person who you knew was doing drugs, but would like to do it in peace, you know? But she didn't care about none of that. She didn't care about her father being high, none of that. She just wanted him to know that he was loved. Because most of his life, he never felt that he was loved. He hated his life. He hated driving that truck. He hated everything. So that's what he did. But I love this book. I read it everywhere. I still do read it everywhere. I read it in class, and my teacher tell me to put it away. I read it in gym. I read it on the bus. Like, I just love it. It's certain parts of this book that I had to reread because I didn't fully understand the first time. But this is a book that I think everyone should read because it comes with such a strong but equally sad message. We need to address the fact that Black lives do matter, and their deaths, murders, and killings should be addressed. We shouldn't have to live in fear. Any questions?